In life, there are those who do and those who do more. Just like F-150, doing more is part of our DNA. It's why F-Series has been Canada's best-selling line of trucks.
Welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review. I'm your host, Wim Liu, joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong after a truly sad weekend for Raptors basketball where they lose to, I wouldn't say tanking specifically teams because the Pacers are 500, but yeah. Not a great weekend for Raptors basketball. However, we have a lot to look forward to tonight, including a game against the Detroit Pistons. Yeah. Alex, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Watched a lot of great things over the weekend. Finished season 2 of Reservation Dogs, which I know is one of our favorite TV shows.
Absolutely.
Went to the Real Asian Film Festival yesterday. Watched a documentary, Grizzly Truth.
Yep.
Watched Licorice Pizza. That's our friend Arun's favorite movie, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I had to watch 2 Raptors games.
Oh, okay.
So
you're saying the Raptor games
tough.
were the toughest parts of the weekend for you?
Yeah, it was tough. I was really concerned, after the no-show in OKC. It just, I don't know. It was just very uncharacteristic. It just felt more concerning than just like a single loss to me. I don't know if you felt the same way.
OKC's had 8 guys scoring double digits.
Mm-hmm.
The Raptors lose pretty much across the board. Points off turnovers, second chance points, fast break points. Shea cooked us, not even for the whole game, just for the third quarter, because the rest of the game you didn't really need to.
They gave up 70 in the first half.
Gave up 70 in the first half. You know what it felt like? It felt like a Raptors-Pistons game.
No, I was generally concerned. I just didn't understand why there was no energy coming from that team.
I agree with you.
Right?
Because the thing is, obviously, just like any other team, you need the Raptors to play hard, but the Raptors are specifically built to be young and very athletic. Mm-hmm. And, part of their advantage is how much harder they can play than their opponents, usually, right? And then you throw in the fact that Pascal was out. Fred did not look right in that game and ultimately has not played since. He's got that non-COVID illness. And so, yeah, it was just a rough one. And you hope for a response against Indiana, which, to be honest, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. But, they did respond. They just couldn't sustain.
Yeah, I guess I'm less upset about the Indiana game because, they played really well in the first half.
Yeah.
And, second night of a back-to-back, things just let things slip away there in the fourth quarter.
But, slip away is an understatement. They lost the fourth quarter 36-14.
Yeah, but my thing is, even going back to their win against Houston last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at this part of the schedule, you knew you didn't have Pascal, and then you were going to be without Fred, too, once he left against OKC and he wasn't in the lineup on Saturday. But you're playing against, listen, I think Indiana's a pretty talented team. I know OKC's got talent, too, but, when you look at the schedule, Houston, OKC, Indiana, you expect that these are the games that you can get, even if your best player is out. And I wasn't that impressed even in their win over Houston.
No, I think you called it your least favorite game of the year.
And if they were playing against a half competent team that was actually trying to win, I think that's a 20-point loss to a half decent team, right? So I just think the overall trends are concerning with just their effort level, and I think it goes back to just role definition and stuff. And I know we're gonna talk about Scottie. And it's not to put all the blame on Scottie, but I think when you have that level of talent, when you're coming off a Rookie of the Year season, it reminds you of what Charles Barkley said about Kevin Durant recently that I heard on podcasts, is that when you are labeled as a star player or a potential star player, the bad is going to come with the good, right? We celebrate everything that's great about Scottie. And even in the games that he's played terrible, he's had these moments where, you know, he'll have that monster dunk over Nick Vucevic, or he'll have 5 possessions where he's just backing down smaller defenders and you can see the
Josh
aggression,
Giddey.
right?
Yeah.
But I think overall it's been a disappointing start with him. And people want to point to he's potentially playing through injury. Well, as long as the team, and you know, I know we can't really trust the Raptors sometimes when it comes to injuries, but Nick came out and said last week that there's no injury concerns with Scottie, right?
He said there's nothing physically that should be hindering him.
Right.
Like, he's got bumps and bruises.
Right.
Like
So we're
everybody.
gonna take their word
That's what he
for
said.
it.
Yeah.
So I think overall it's just been disappointing second year. Like, you expect a young player to go through their ups and downs, but what's bothering me more is just like body language, just like energy level, because this is the basic stuff that I think Scottie brings to the table, right? And
Yeah.
I just see him complaining to the refs all the time, even like basic stuff like that. Like,
Look, I hear you on all this. You know what? And to be honest, I think on this program, whether it's like us doing the Raptors show or the React Pod, like, we have kind of covered essentially what hasn't necessarily been there for him. And I think what you're trying to say is, like, you're trying to see what he did at moments last year, right? The Raptors super short-handed. They go play Brooklyn, and Scottie has 28 points on 12 of 14 shooting. You know, Raptors playing the Lakers, he has 31 points and 17 rebounds and 6 assists. And LeBron says, yo, I saw Scotty Barnes as an infant, and I knew he was going to score in the NBA and win Rookie of the Year.
it's like, I knew one day I was going to throw the ball off his head as I was jumping out of bounds
Well, why did LeBron
for no reason.
No, I mean, he was trying to save the ball, but also that was really
By the way,
harsh.
tune in November 28th, man. Benedict Mathurin against LeBron. Yeah.
Oh, I can't
There's
wait.
definitely going to be an inadvertent elbow at some point.
I'm happy the Pacers have a second coming of Lance Stevenson.
Oh, man.
But he's better than Lance, but you know, same kind of vibe. You know, he had a 27-point game against Washington, 12 of 19 shooting. You know, against Boston when the Raptors won by 30, he had 25 and 13. Right, that was his second NBA game. So, you know, I think those are the kind of performances that you would hope to have seen. And to be honest, that might have been the only way the Raptors could have won some of those games, especially the Indiana game without Fred, without Pascal, with Gary just like shooting 1 for 13, and afterwards now he's ruled out with an injury. It makes sense how bad he was in that game. Essentially, you're short 3 starters. You needed Scottie to sort of step up and fill the role of 2 guys. Even if that's unfair, I think that's what it probably would have taken to ultimately win some of those games, and it just didn't happen. But I think, again, like, we've covered that on the show, like, repeatedly. So I think for me, it's just thinking about it just as a fresh way to talk about this, like, how do we get Scotty Barnes back on track, right? Because to me, that's like, yeah, I see the frustration too. I think you see it on TV all the time, the complaining to the officials. You know, he's throwing his hands up at his teammates sometimes when there's a defensive breakdown. You know, his defense is bad at times. There's one play where he had his back turned to the shooter as, you know, somebody that he was guarding pop free for 3. It might not necessarily have been only him. It's one of those, like, defensive breakdowns that the Raptors have from time to time. But, you know, it's not ideal. So the point is, like, yes, he's underperforming. Yes, he's not necessarily scaling up his production. Maybe the ankle is hurting him. To be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised. I mean, he does, like, grab at the ankle, like, a decent amount. But at the same time, it's like, how do we get him on track? I think that's the conversation that both the fans and probably the coaching staff is looking to have right now.
Yeah, and I almost feel like, you know, we talk about role definition all the time. I almost feel like, I don't know at this point right now if it makes sense to get him back on track, to really just give him a more defined role. Because, you know, I think like we mentioned last week, you know, he's always been like a freelancer to me in terms of he's got, you know, all this skill. So you just let him kind of go on the court and do these different things on the offensive end. Whereas maybe there's a tug and pull between him as a creator and him as a scorer. And you see that during games, right? Like, I think he's always looking to create. And sometimes that's why you see in the first half of these games, you don't see him on the stat sheet in terms of just scoring. And then you'll see occasional spurts, like in the third quarter, I think against OKC, you know, when he started getting into low post. And it just seems like nothing he's doing, even when he's scoring, is kind of within the flow of the game. Like, there has to be like an extra kind of emphasis for him to do those things.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like on the coaches to say that, like, hey, this is the role that we want you in right now. So then maybe that will help him just kind of narrow that focus to what he is supposed to contribute, like the main things that he's supposed to bring to the table on the court.
Yeah. No, and to be clear, I think you see experienced players like struggle with this too. Like, you know, because essentially they're asking Scotty to be the playmaker right now. without your point guard, and without Pascal, who's leading the team in assists. You're asking him to also be the scorer and the finisher in a lot of sequences as well. A lot of these are self-generated. You're asking him to sort of play in different scenarios, whether it's pick and roll or on the block or ISO or whatever. So, like, I see that confusion. And, even when you watch, like, this is a wild comparison, but, when you watch even the Lakers at the start of the year, I was like, there are certain lineups where the Lakers want LeBron to be the rebounder, the passer, the scorer, the defender, the fast break outlet. Like, they want him to do everything on the floor. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of that with sort of where the Raptors are at in terms of needing from Scotty. And obviously he's coming up a lot short. Even if, like, LeBron's coming up short on those expectations, I think,
I think they're 0-10 with LeBron in the lineup this season.
Yeah, that's not a surprise to me.
Yeah. Okay.
He just looks kind of miserable. But yeah, I mean, these are things that'll happen. But I think I agree with you. Like, getting him back on track, I think you really need to be very clear in terms of, like, what are some things that we'd like to see from you, but what are some things that are non-negotiable, right? Like, non-negotiables, you need to have these things every single game. And then the rest of those are, like, ideally you can sort of add those things in. When you're in a rhythm, you can start doing some of this stuff, because then it really sort of pushes up over the top. And for me, this is what I have for non-negotiables. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Focus on defense, right? Like, I mean, like, not just, like, not make any mistakes defensively. I mean, like, focus on the defensive end, right? Like, not, like, losing track of your man, not blaming your teammate, not making all the right rotations. Just the focus on defense needs to be there all the time, right? And it's one of those things where bad offense can't bleed into your bad defense. Two thing for me is the rebounding effort has to be strong consistently, right? Pascal was your leading rebounder. With him out of the lineup, the Raptors are giving up a lot more offensive rebounds. You need somebody to get in there and vacuum up these rebounds. And I've seen Scotty have, like, 17 rebound games, right? So, again, you need him there. Also, by the way, Precious is out, so another big rebounder for you. My third non-negotiable is getting into the paint, like touching the paint, like whether that's off the pick and roll where he's able to, shed his defender on the screen and then touch the paint, or if he's on the block and facing up or backing down, touching the paint. Like, either way, he needs to get into the paint, because there's nobody else on the Raptors healthy right now that can do that on a consistent basis. So they need this from him. And then the fourth thing is just continue to make the right pass, which I actually don't ever worry about with him. He is, like, naturally unselfish. And I thought even against the game against Indiana, like, there were 4 plays where he passed it directly to a guy who got fouled. So those aren't assists, right? He only had 5, but that's like 4 plays that he made the pass to where the Raptors immediately scored. And then there were a couple of missed threes. So it could have been another night where, again, Raptors don't shoot 7 of 35 from 3. He might have more assists, but I'm not worried about the passing. Those are the non-negotiables. Focusing on defense, of securing the rebounding, getting into the paint time and time again, and then making the right passes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think a lot of these things go back to just like attention to detail, and just a particular focus when it comes to approaching every game the same way. And listen, I don't sit here and think that, like, Scotty's the biggest problem with the team. I think
he's far from it.
I think if you were to ask me, like, just fundamentally, I would just tell you that, I think this stretch is, making me realize just how important Pascal is to this team, right? Like,
okay,
like I wouldn't, like, to me, he's just as important as, say, if you remove, like, I don't know, like Steph Curry from the Warriors. I'm not saying they're the similar level player if you want to compare them 1-to-1.
Right,
but think about the contributions, right?
Yeah, you can't take the player that the system is built around.
Yeah, like, he was the center. He was the center of all of it, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that really is the key to all the problems. It doesn't remove the concern that, we're not getting a lot from, like, the rest of the roster. And I think Scotty's just getting the spotlight because, like I said at the very beginning, like, he's the easiest path to the Raptors winning again and contending again. And, like, he's got clearly the highest ceiling of any player on this team. And that's why there's these expectations on him.
Yeah.
Like, we could be breaking down all of our players, like a lot of the players, about these things.
Yeah.
But it's just that Scotty has shown us flashes of all this, right?
Sure, yeah.
So, like, I think we should come to expect him. But I think I got to remind myself, too, sometimes, like, he's 21, he's in his second year. And we always said last year, too, that, like, the development thing is never linear and stuff. And you're going to go through your ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
So, if anything, like, I just want to see how he responds to this tough stretch. Because this is really the first time, I think, in his career here with the Raptors where he's probably had the spotlight on him like this and conversations like this.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that he said having the spotlight on him like this, because he's had, like, cold stretches in his career before, right? Like, we've seen moments last year. There was, like, a 3-game stretch where he didn't attempt more than 10 field goals. let me just check this quick stretch here. He was injured during this time, but there was like a 7-game period where he scored 10 points a game, shot 36% from the field, shot 20% from three. This past 6 games here for Scottie, he is shooting 34% from the field, 20% from three, and averaging 12 points, right? So it's like we've seen sort of this come and go with him. And to be honest, again, like we can also be honest about the fact that his scoring skill set is not diverse enough right now for him to be a consistent scorer game after game, right? There are only certain things that he does on a consistent basis, and getting him at the basket to score is something where defenses can come over and really show a crowd. And obviously you hope that his passing can sort of unlock that, but then again, if the Raptors shoot 20% from three, they're going to keep doubling him. It's going to be hard for him to score. But I agree with you. Like I think that we do need to expect a reasonable amount from him at the current moment. But again, it just like with any other player, though, it's like expectations are just one thing, but you got to focus on what the coach is asking you to do, and just trying to serve that role as much as anything else. I'm sure it's like hard to like live up to expectations all the time. There's a great quote from Thad Young that he said after the game against Indiana, where he was asked about Scottie, and he said, like I've seen the sophomore slump happen, right? Defenses sort of like adjust to you and all this other stuff, but realistically, it's all on you. Like Scottie puts a lot of pressure on himself to be great, and that's really heavy, but at the same time, that's what's going to make him great in the long run. I think like that's very true. And yeah, I mean, these things are very complicated, but at the end of the day, you just got to do what you're being tasked to do. His role right now is to be very focused on defense, rebound the ball, get into the paint, and make the right pass. It doesn't have to be more complex than that at the moment. And then, of course, there are things you like to have. Like, obviously, if you can like go one-on-one and score consistently, that'd be great. Some games we see that happen. Some games we don't. And then some games he's knocked down a lot of threes. Like we saw that one game against Atlanta where he knocked down 5 threes. Some games he doesn't, right? But we also know that that's sort of come and go. So those are like to haves. But as long as he does those 4 things, I don't think anyone necessarily should be disappointed from him at the moment.
Yeah, and I think right now it's probably best if you just simplify things and just ask him to focus on the things that you mentioned, right?
Okay, so in terms of the roles, do you want him? Which role do you want him to focus on for tonight's game, for example?
I think I want it to start just on the defensive end, like the defensive end and the rebounding effort that you mentioned, right? Because the way I look at this overall Raptors team too, and I love like the contributions that Thaddeus Young and Otto Porter Jr. have brought to the team.
Yeah.
But like they're supposed to be complementary pieces. Yeah. And I feel like in these games, like Nick is actually going to them to kind of have them set the tone. And that shouldn't be it, because you have a really young athletic team. You talk about this team filled with like 6'9" players, with their wingspans and stuff. Like that should be the identity of this team, right? They should be like a youthful, energetic team.
Plays hard.
Yeah, plays hard, gets out on the break. We've seen them like break those fast break records in those games against Atlanta and San Antonio. I don't expect that to happen every night, like depending on the opposition and how the defense plays you, but like that should be the hallmark of this team, right?
Yeah.
And I think Scottie can lead the way in that. I look at a player like Chris Boucher, like even in the losses over the weekend.
He's the lone bright spot. Well, actually, I guess Thad Young as well, but
yeah, like I see the energy that Chris is bringing. To the game, right? And he's hustling his way to like 20 points and like 12 rebounds.
Yeah, and again, like the key word there is hustling. They're not calling him any plays for Chris Boucher, but he comes in, he plays hard, and there's no doubt that he's gonna play hard, right? That's what you admire about him. It's just like, you know what? Not everything's gonna come off. He might not necessarily take that charge. It might be a block. He might not necessarily, make every three, but like for sure that he's gonna get on the glass. And those are things that a lot of other guys can be doing. Right, like when some of these third unit guys or second unit guys come in and they're not energetic, it baffles me. Right, this is your one chance to play this week, this month, maybe. Right, like what can you do with it? So that was more against the OKC game. At least in the Pacers game, we saw a little bit of Malachi come into life, a little bit of Delano come into life, which was nice to see. We're gonna need more of that, but also we can also be realistic with all these injuries right now. And by the way, Gary Trent Jr. has now been added to the injury list. He's got a sore left hip or something like that. The way the Raptors are going to win any games during this stretch with this many absences to this many key players is by locking down on defense. Like if the Raptors score over 100 points tonight, you know what? that should be a win on its own. But like, that's where your defense needs to be super, super locked in, because that's how you're going to grind out these results.
Yeah. No, I think I'm okay with the team losing some games, especially with Pascal out. Just not losing the way that you lost to OKC.
Yeah,
You
I
just
hear
can't
man.
have those efforts. And like,
8 guys in double digits for
No, but,
OKC,
like,
man. Most
you're-
people can't name 8 guys on OKC.
but like you already had that. Well, I mean, the second game against the Sixers. I mean, you guys just tip your cap off to your guy,
not say
Tyrese
his name, man.
Maxey.
No. Come on,
This
man.
guy treating him like Voldemort.
No, he's Voldemort to me, man.
But like you can only have so many of those during the season, especially knowing that Pascal is out and Fred is out. Like there's a talent discrepancy on the court already. Like you're only gonna win by like outworking and out hustling the other team.
Yep.
And I think against competition like a OKC, like in Indiana, and like a Detroit tonight, they're gonna be without Kate Cunningham. Like that's your path to winning, right?
Yep.
Like you're not, and if you play hard and you lose because the other team just beats you with their shot making or whatever, I'm okay with it. I'm just not okay with them losing for their lack of effort. That should never happen with this team.
No, exactly. Like the Raptors should be a try-hard team.
Yeah, and they
Like,
haven't been trying
it's
hard
not
in
even
a
an
lot of
insult.
stretches this season. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
I hear you.
concerning to me.
Well, they
I
tried
don't want
against
to sound the
Indiana.
alarms or anything. But,
No, they tried against Indiana. They just had no like offense at all, man. They got outshot 19-7 at the 3-point line. I haven't seen that happen since Raptors Cavs. Remember when the Raptors would play the Cavs in the playoffs? I mean,
yeah.
And it would be like,
It's like J.R. Smith, 79% in the series.
yo, that's
from
an
three.
actual stat, man.
This guy brought home a calculus score, man.
Oh man,
He got 79%.
this guy came home with a B+ in 3-point
That was
shooting.
insane, man.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that's all I want to see tonight, man.
Okay,
Like
all
you
right.
mentioned, they're without Fred, they're without Gary, without Pascal.
Mhm,
So that's 3 starters.
Yep.
Precious is out.
Yep.
Kem is questionable.
Mhm.
Like there's not a lot of players just in general on the roster. Like no, like
Yeah, actually, hold on. I actually
What-
did compile this.
is Malachi starting tonight? What's going on?
It's very curious to see who Nick starts, to be honest. Okay, so this is within the first month of the season happening.
Yeah.
Pascal is injured his groin. Fred injured his back and also has missed the last 2 games due to illness. Scotty hurt his ankle. Gary's now hurt his hip. Precious, hurt his ankle. He's going to be out for weeks. Chris Boucher started the season late because of the hamstring. Otto Porter had a hamstring issue. He also missed, I think, 1 or 2 games because of the birth of a child, which is congrats to him once again. Kem has missed time with the knee, and Malachi is wearing a mask still because he got elbowed in the face.
Okay. Yeah.
It's 9 guys.
No, it's been tough, the injuries. And I'm telling you, man, it goes back to like starting in the Tampa year too, man. It's Tampa year. Last year too, they dealt with a lot of injuries, right?
Last year
obviously
they dealt with
Pascal was
injuries,
out.
but it was like 1 or 2 at a time. Like
Yeah.
this in this cluster is bad. Even in the Tampa season, they had injuries too. Like, but it was a scenario where they were in Tampa and they were tanking, and you couldn't really tell if guys were going to come back because of they wanted to tank or
Yeah.
whatever. And there was also a bunch of COVID outbreaks on the team at that moment, so there was like a lot of games that were played where they had 7 guys. But it wasn't like this. These are all just like assorted injuries happening all at once.
Yeah, listen, man. If Scotty Barnes is your first star on the React Pod tonight, it means the Raptors have pulled off the victory. If it's Juancho Hernan-Gomez, it means the Dwayne Casey curse continues.
We have a
Please
whole.
pull up your 3 stars from Friday against OKC. It was hilarious. Man.
If I remember off the top of my head,
I saw Juancho.
I think Chris
was
Boucher
there.
was number 1 for sure because he had 20 and 12.
Yeah.
I think Juancho was
Did
second,
Malachi make
and
it
Malachi
too?
was third. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tough stretch.
If you
man.
miss the Raptors games, just check the episode description on the React Pod for the 3 stars. It generally will tell you a lot.
whether or not you want to listen to it, you just
like-
got to see the 3 stars.
Yeah, just play a stream. It's like, what? Doc Rivers, 3rd star? That was unprecedented. Why didn't
Yeah.
you do that?
I opened the door on a.
No, you opened your 3rd eye on that one. Oh, anyways, we're gonna call Alvin Williams after the break.
Yes.
But just wanted to quickly mention, I know you just promoted on your social. So our next, we have a live charity event on Monday, December 12th at
Yes.
Revival in College with special guest Chris Boucher. So if you want to grab tickets, you can grab them at willu.eventbrite.ca. It's
That's
also
right.
on our socials if you want to grab.
Yeah, that's the easiest part is just to look at my Twitter, look for the pinned tweet. You'll see it there.
Yeah, and the tickets will include food at the event, raffle ticket. We got a lot of cool prize giveaways.
Lots
people
of cool
people
prize
that came to our
giveaways.
last live event. It'll be similar vibes, and we're donating all of the proceeds to Chris's foundation, the
Yeah.
Slim Duck Foundation. He does a lot of great stuff with the youth in Montreal and other things. So
Yeah,
it's just
And-
something that we always want to do as part of like this platform and stuff.
Absolutely. I think that's the coolest thing. Even going back to, us last night at the Real Asian Film Festival, Toronto Real Asian Film Festival, and watching The Grizzly Truth. that documentary really highlighted like what the community can do for a city, especially through sports. Um, and that's kind of all like that's the bigger goal that I've wanted to do with this program for a long, long time. And so this is like one of those initiatives where, we have that audience, we can bring people together, we can, because it's for Raptor fans. Like, where do you really gather outside of going to Raptor games, which are fairly inaccessible for a lot of people to go to, especially in the city? Where can you go to meet other Raptor fans, to sort of like make friends, be part of the community in person? There's online communities, but there's in-person communities. And then how do we do that in a way where we can come together and actually like create positive social change? And it's cool that we're able to do this with Chris. Obviously, the storyline with Chris, the redemption story arc, is like it's complete. Like, this is amazing when you really think about it.
Yeah, just be cool for the next 3 weeks.
That's right. No, Chris Boucher is the first star tonight. Actually, no matter what happens.
Yeah. Sponsored. It's gonna your 3 stars are gonna be sponsored.
Sponsored by Slim Jim.
Oh man.
No, but seriously though, like it's cool to work with his foundation and we the two of us spent a ton of time in Montreal.
Yeah. No, and like, we always joke. I mean, I guess only I joke about generational wealth, but like, it's not a joke. But like we always talk
to make it clear.
No, like we always in agreement on doing these events, not to just like put more money in our own pockets. You know what
legit,
I mean?
You
like
and I
that's
actually, you and I are actually pocketing $0.
Yeah, we're pocketing zero from this, and like we wanna use these platforms and these events as a way to just give back in any small way that we can. So we'd love to see you there, willu.eventbrite.ca. It's limited capacity event, so grab your tickets. Yeah. And honestly, hope to see, like, it was so cool last time, just like meeting a lot of the, obviously the Raptors Show listeners and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people follow you from way back and stuff, which is super cool.
Yeah. And by the way, last time there was a lineup around the block and we sold out tickets in a day. So.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not saying that this will happen here, but ideally it happens here.
Yeah, we'll see. Price of the brick went up, so.
I mean, it's all for charity.
It's all for charity.
Once again.
And again, food will be there, giveaway prizes.
Yeah.
It'll be cool.
No, it's been great. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and call Alvin Williams. But I've been your host, Willu. That's Alex Wong. You're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Liu. Joining us for the second segment is Alvin Williams, Sportsnet teammate, Raptors point guard of the past. Alvin, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, Alvin. So the discussion we were having in the top of the hour here was about Scotty Barnes and sort of how to get him back on track. I just think, to start here with you, you got to see him super up close. You're obviously on the road. You're watching him warm up and sort of how he's handling himself on the floor. And obviously us at home, we're kind of just seeing what, the broadcast is showing us. But what are you seeing from Scotty Barnes right now? Sort of like what are some of the things that he's been struggling with, and how's his demeanor been during this stretch?
I mean, his demeanor has been cool. I don't know Scotty that well, but I don't know him at all. But his play, it's just been, it seems like he's trying to figure out how to be impactful. It seems like he's trying to find a balance from being taking an outside shot, then being aggressive going to the rim, and being a playmaker. I know there's a lot of talk about his usage rating last year compared to a player of that talent or that magnitude. Should he be used more? And now he's going to get that opportunity, and he's getting that opportunity. I think it's about finding his balance. And I think emotionally he has to settle in. I think I'm watching him a little more. He's more emotionally involved with, like, referees and certain plays. And I think when you get to this point of your career, your second year and the expectations are higher, sometimes you put a lot more pressure on yourself to do more. You want to do more. You can do more. And it's about finding out how you can be most effective in that role. So I think all of these things are playing a toll, but he's talented enough and he has the ability to figure it all out, this is just all part of the learning process.
Yeah, Alvin, the other thing we were talking about too was, obviously with Scotty's skill set, he can do so much on the floor, especially on the offensive end, as like a creator, as a scorer. Do you think in a situation like this, where he might be going through some struggles now for the first time in his NBA career, that it would benefit him if the Raptors kind of had a more defined role for him in terms of what they wanted out of him on the offensive end?
I mean, I think you grow into that. He's one of those type of players that, defensively he can guard multiple positions. Offensively, he can handle the ball. You can run the offense through him. He can get his own offense without plays being called for him. And I think that's the uniqueness of this team, where you have so many players that have, similar games, similar stature. And it's hard for a coach when you don't have necessarily a role for a guy, and multiple guys have similar roles. So it's really how do you put all of those together? As much as that's a luxury when you have guys that can handle the ball, shoot the ball, create for themselves and others, it's still, to your point, sometimes it gets confusing when a lot of the guys can't figure out when to do what they are best at. But I think a player like Scotty, his role will fluctuate. His role is he's not going to be one thing. So I think it's about him finding that balance and then using his strengths and on a consistent basis. It's all about being consistent, right? When you get to this phase of your career.
Yeah, Alvin, I think Thad Young said it after the game. Players sometimes go through the sophomore slump. They can kind of hit you at certain points. I think just the idea of slumps in general for an athlete, first off, how do you, does the athlete know immediately that they're in a slump? And sort of what are some of the things that, you have seen either with yourself or with some of your teammates, some tips as to how to break out of a slump? Because I got to think that's got to be the worst feeling ever for an athlete.
I mean, I think the slump is psychological more than anything. You're going to have your ups and downs physically. Some days you're not going to feel as great. Some days the shot's not going to go in. Some days it's just not your day. But psychologically, when you start thinking or overthinking or losing confidence, that's where the slump comes in. So the best players, when they have those days where they're not shooting the ball well, it doesn't stay like that, right? They get out of there mentally. They'll create. They'll get to the foul line. They'll do something defensively. So they'll always have an impact on the game. A lot of times as fans and spectators, what we do, we notice those things and we notice a trend. But a player truly, they don't really stay in that mind space. If they stay in that mind space, then that's trouble. So once again, someone like Scotty who's figuring these things out, who's in a role now where without a Pascal or Fred in the game, he has to be the point guard. I mean, I'm watching him jump ball, and then I'm watching him go back and get the ball and run the offense after the jump is won. So he has a lot of – that's like Magic Johnson type of stuff. So he has a lot of things that he has to think about. He has to get other people involved. He has to be aggressive. So mentally, he can't go in that space of being in a slump because he's always going to have an imprint on the game. I mean, there are such a things as sophomore slumps and all that type of stuff, but I think that's more for the imagination than it truly comes to play.
Yeah, and for you personally too, Alvin, you know, when you came to the Raptors, you obviously very early on in your career, and, you know, this was a pretty like, there's a lot of vets in that locker room for a long period of time that you were here. And I'm thinking about just like the Raptors now having guys like Thaddeus Young, Otto Porter Jr., Fred. Fred always, treats himself like a 35-year-old vet. Like how important is it to just have those guys to be speaking to Scottie and kind of just pointing these things out to him as he's trying to work through this?
Oh, man, it's very important. You can't put a value on that. When you have a Thaddeus Young that can lead a huddle, that can orchestrate, and then also can still play, that's very valuable because he's been through it. Thad has been somebody who's played in the inside position as an undersized guy whose role changed a lot. He was one of those first guys where you would have a smaller four man. He's guarding fours and making fours guard him, which created matchup problems early in his career. And for him to be somebody on the team that has so much knowledge, still has game, that those people in the locker room are so valuable that, I mean, that's a coach's dream to have those players and that can talk to other players through these situations on and off the court. So that it's very important. To your point, I had a lot of vets. Right? We had a team full of vets, and then we had Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady and a couple of younger guys. But those guys, they will walk us, talk us through it, put us in situations. They will hold us accountable. And that's the other thing as well. The biggest thing that the vets did for us, they held us accountable. They made sure that we knew we learned from our mistakes. They would call us out on our mistakes. They would make sure we did extra. They would make sure there weren't any days off. And they would get in our stuff if need be. So it was nothing for a soft-hearted person in that locker room because we had some hard-nosed veteran guys that are going to hold us to the fire. And I think that's always important as well for a young player. A young player should not come into the league feeling entitled or feeling like they can do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. They have to answer to somebody. And hopefully the Raptors do have that, in that locker room.
Yeah, and Alvin, I'm curious, is it easier to receive some of these messages from an older teammate versus receiving it from the coaching staff? Because I think some people will argue well, isn't that sort of part of the reason you have coaches, right, to hold guys accountable to make some of these decisions? But at the same time, is it a little bit differently to receive it from a wily vet who's done it for a long time in their careers versus a head coach?
I mean, it's a balance. For me, when I was playing, I always had the respect. I respected the elders. I respected the coaches. I respected authority, right? The younger players today, they don't come from the same background as we came from. A lot of the younger players in the league is so much younger. The peers are younger. And the veteran guys are even 25 years old. Like you said, Fred, he's young to me, and he's carrying himself like a 35-year-old guy. But even the vets are young guys, so to speak. And a coach, when you hear the coach's voice a lot, sometimes the worst thing, your player will tune a coach out. So a coach has to find that balance, whether it's someone on his coaching staff or, they pick and choose when they're going to fight certain battles with players or how they communicate with players. But there's nothing like a locker room that polices themselves, right? Like if you got veterans that know, all right, coaches, you guys can step out. We got this one. That's something that every good team should be able to have. But it always depends on the person who's receiving the message and their upbringing and their respect level for whether it's a veteran guy or it's the coaching staff. But just having that aspect of the guys being able to police themselves in the locker room, that's huge because, once again, as a player, you get pissed off at the coaches. And the coaches sometimes get pissed off at you. Everyone has a job to do. But you can't get pissed off too long at your teammates because you're with them all day, every day. And those are the people you ultimately respect, especially if they carry themselves with respect and leadership qualities.
Yeah, I was thinking about just a spotlight on Scotty too, because coming off the Rookie of the Year season, and just the flashes of brilliance that he's shown on the court, and obviously all eyes are going to be on him to make another leap this season and continue his path to being a superstar. Like, I feel like the last Raptor player to be drafted and have had this level of expectations was really Vince. Going back to your era. And this is kind of like the gift and the curse of like being a really talented player. It's like, we always talk about development not being a linear process, and guys are going to have to go through their ups and downs and fight through these slumps. Like sometimes I feel like Alvin, like that's really hard for these guys, especially when I think about Scotty. Like he's only 21.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things we don't consider. We don't consider day to day what Scotty is going through. Like I got a chance firsthand to see Vince, and then just like him just coming right out of the box and becoming a superstar pretty much overnight. And then the expectations. And I start seeing Vince's demeanor change a bit. I start seeing him being a little more testy, a little more impatient with people. And then he had to grow into that role. Like, all right, this is what superstardom looks like. This is what these high expectations look like. And this is how I got to conduct myself in order to, achieve these things that I need to achieve for myself and the team. So once again, to you guys' point, having those vets that's been through it and that can talk you through it, that's something that's big. And Scotty is going through these things, right? He's Rookie of the Year. He's coming to this second season with high expectations, and game plans are, against him. Players are stepping up, doing more. So you gotta figure all of these things out. And then off the court, who knows what's going on off the court? Psychologically, a lot of it comes down to that. A lot of things like play a part, in someone's head, and they can't perform the way they want to perform or where we feel like they should be performing. But at the end of the day, he has something that a lot of players don't have, and that ability, that talent, and then that desire to be good. Like I watch him work out. I watch him work out with Rico Hines. I watch him work out with Earl Watson. He works out. So he has that ability and he has that temperament to be good. I think the only thing that I've seen that was a change from this year and last year, once again, is his emotions. And sometimes that tie into, putting pressure on yourself and expecting certain things out of yourself and others. And if it's not coming right away, then emotionally you're not there. So emotionally, I would love to see him control that a little more and then stick to really getting back to playing basketball the way he can play basketball.
Yeah. Alvin, thanks for your perspective. Thanks for your wisdom on that. And hey, listen, if Nick might need you in the rotation, man. The rotation's quite thin tonight. So I hope you wear some sneakers tonight.
If Nick needs me, then we're all in trouble.
No.
We're all in trouble.
All right. All right, Alvin. Good luck on the game tonight, all right?
Have a good one, guys.
Thank
all right.
you.
Thank you.
Alvin Williams, Raptors point guard.
No, Alvin always coming through with the sage advice, man, for real.
Yeah, actually, no. And I think it's great that you asked that question about Vince, because there's only a few number of people who are able to get to that point where people actually expect them these things of these players, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not coming to these games against OKC being like, I'm expecting OG to give me 40. I'm expecting OG to set guys up.
Yeah.
I'm expecting Gary to, hit 10 threes.
No,
I'm
there's a
expecting
reason
all this
why we're not doing like a 20-minute segment breaking down like non-negotiables
not
for like Thad Young. You know what I mean? No, but you know what I
The
mean?
non-negotiable is tell everybody they're special on the team, man.
Yeah, no.
I mean, salute to Thad, though. But no, seriously, though, I think there's an entirely different psychology when you're the athlete that, like, again, you and I, 99% of people in the world can never really relate to.
Yeah.
So when you ask them these things and hear their perspective, you understand a lot more in terms of how they're playing and how they're performing.
Yeah.
Even aside from all this stuff that we sort of understand about basketball sort of like more conceptually, like when these people actually have to go out and compete and deal with expectations and deal with defenses playing you differently or deal with playing through physical ailments and stuff like that, like you're a much more understanding, I guess, once you hear it.
Yeah, I just want to be more self-aware of it because I know, like, especially if Scotty continues to struggle, like, I think, ourselves and like everyone watching the team is going to be very critical of him because of the expectations. But at the same time, like you mentioned, it's just hard to understand how hard it is once you get thrusted into that spotlight, right?
Yeah,
It's tiring. It's tiring when you have, people kind of watching your every move. But at the same time, like when I'm watching the game against OKC and I hear him audibly still complaining to the ref about like missing a travel call like 3 possessions later after it happened, I'm just like, man, like, I don't want that body language. But he's a 21-year-old kid trying to figure it out, right? Like, I'm just trying to remind myself of that too sometimes, because like like you said, it's just hard to put ourselves in those shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it must be annoying. It must be annoying to not be able to kind of develop and grow at your job without all this like public scrutiny.
Yeah, well,
which is why I always say it shouldn't be a daily show. It should be a monthly show.
Well, fair enough. You could take that up with HR.
yeah. Still hasn't gotten a reply on that.
No, who was it that said like you get paid in professional sports for all this stuff off the field or off the pitch. You play the game for free. Who said that?
I don't know, but that's sounds like something Alvin Williams would say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but now it is time for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. It's a whole new game. So like we mentioned, Will, the Raptors are without 3 starters tonight, Fred, Pascal, and Gary. Precious is also out. Kem Birch is questionable.
Yep.
But the line for tonight's game at Bet Rivers, the Raptors are 4.5-point favorites. At Detroit. Now,
the Pistons.
Yeah, so we're going to get into this game, but I know that you did a lot of diligent research about the entire era of Dwayne Casey versus the Raptors. And this has been a running joke, and it's just not funny anymore. The fact the fact that we're still talking about this, what year are we on right now? 2022? Like the fact that this is still a thing every time the Raptors play the Pistons.
Oh, it's a thing.
But you've got all the notes here, so I'm going to let you just, run with this. You did a whole recap.
Oh yeah,
of the era so far.
Okay, so this is the Casey curse, or this is the Casey Cup. Every time that Dwayne Casey plays the Raptors, so obviously he got let go when he won, Coach of the Year, and then the Raptors won the championship. So blah blah. Everyone knows that, right? Since he took over with the Pistons, the Raptors are 3-9 against Detroit in that stretch. The stats are that Dwayne Casey is 9-3 against the Raptors and 98-206 versus everyone else. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. 3 times the Raptors have been swept in a season series against Detroit.
That's not even possible, man.
Including in 2019 when the Raptors won the championship. The Raptors got swept that year. Then the Tampa year they got swept, and then last year they got swept. And so I kind of wanted to go through and look at those. Luckily, I write 10 things for every game, and so I literally went back into the archives and read 10 things on like the score.
Has your team won a game yet?
I mean, no, actually.
Where's that from?
I think that's from Murdoch Mysteries, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, shout out to Nick and his many endeavors. So I went back, on the archives of the score, on the archives of Raptors Republic, on the archives of Yahoo, and here at Sportsnet as well, to look at the notes. And so 2018, everyone knows this game. This is the first game Dwayne came back to Toronto. He got a big, standing ovation and stuff like that. He deserved it. He really did, right? That game was pretty much in the Raptors' favor. They were up by 19 in the second half. They blow it.
Oh, I know John bet on the Raptors that game.
Ultimately, Reggie Bullock hits the game winner on a weird backdoor kind of cut or whatever. Dwayne Casey's jumping up in there, and a couple of underrated notes from that game. He instead of going down the tunnel, which when you watch Raptor games, you'll notice that all the players and coaches go down the same tunnel, right? Because that's where the locker rooms are. The directions are right there. Dwayne Casey, who worked in Toronto for like 7 years before that, went down the other tunnel just to not see Nick, I would have assuming. But anyway, that was a great moment for him and lose that game, right? Raptors shot 4 of 20 from 3, by the way, in that game. This is with Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard on the roster and Kyle Lowry. All right.
Did Kawhi play that game?
Oh, he played. Yeah, he got shut down by Stanley Johnson. These are real things that happen.
So glad
in
he left
Pistons
for the
game.
Clippers.
March 3rd, 2019, the Raptors win in the Pistons win in overtime. All right, no Kawhi in this game.
I don't like this next note.
Jeremy Lin got the start. People forget that Jeremy Lin started a couple games with the Raptors. Shot 0 of 8 from the field. All right, that's tough. That's a tough one for us, all right? But the Raptors lose, right? Then 2 weeks later, March 17th, 2019, the Raptors have their full squad. Kawhi's playing. They're heading to the, Marc Gasol's on the team now. They're headed for the playoffs. Pistons, actually that year they were actually decent. I think they were the 8th seed. Something like that. But
oh yeah, they got swept by Milwaukee in the first round.
Yes. But yeah, the Raptors just straight up lose. And the only reason this was notable is because I literally quit Raptors Republic that day.
Oh.
Not because of the loss. It's just the timing. I got another job. But yeah, so anyway, that was my last post for Raptors Republic. That was like after a 5-year period of writing for them. It was just funny. 2020. Right. The 2019 season, Raptors beat the Pistons 3 times. One note, by the way, to pass along is that the Raptors had one game where 3 Raptors got hurt in the same game. Marc Gasol, Norm Powell, and Pascal Siakam. That was the first time he hurt his groin. All right. So, that really sucked. But anyway,
so
the Raptors win 3 times.
So still an L.
Still an L, oddly enough, you're right. But the next season, this is the Tampa season, right? Some truly, truly strange things start happening. First off, the Raptors play the Pistons 3 times in the same month, all in March. The first game, they lose 129-105. The Raptors allowed 43 points in the first quarter, where all 16 of the Pistons' baskets were assisted. Svi Mihajlovic started that game for Detroit, scored 17. Wayne Ellington had 25. Mason Plumlee had a triple-double. Sabin Lee had 20 points. Same game, I think Dennis Smith Jr. also had a triple-double. Rodney Magruder had 20. Sergio Scariolo coached that game.
No, they turned into the 2014 Spurs in this game, man.
Dwayne Casey issued a coach's challenge on Chris Boucher's drive with 4 minutes left, with his team up 22 points.
That's an unsportsmanlike foul. That should have been a flagrant on Dwane, man.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
my God.
By the way, the Raptors, that game started Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell, Aaron Baines, Terrence Davis, and Yuta Watanabe. Okay, maybe not a surprise that they lost. Then 2 weeks later, they play once again, 116-112. I think Pascal and Fred shot a combined 6 of 25. They were just coming off of COVID. Norm had 43. Mason Plumlee, 10 and 14 again. Josh Jackson, who became a Raptor, and then the Raptors cut him, had 16, 5 and 6. Raptors lose that game. Then March 29, 2021, Raptors lose by 14 points. The Raptors bench is outscored 65-24. Corey Joseph has 17 points.
Yeah.
All right.
See that
and then real quickly, last season, November 13th, the Raptors lose 127-121 from 10 things. All right, this is what I wrote at the time. The Pistons managed 78 points on Friday and 127 points on Sunday against the Raptors.
I remember this. On Friday, they played Sacramento.
They doubled their point out total from one game to the next.
This was when Fred was out because he did the Sam Cassell dance against Philly earlier in the week.
And apparently hurt his groin.
And then Goran had to come in a spot start.
Yes.
And after the game, he was like, yeah, man, they didn't tell me till I got to the arena. I was exhausted. He was like, I wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready to work at all in his Raptors tenure. So whatever, right? Cade crosses up OG twice down the stretch for some clutch buckets. Raptors lose a game. January 14th, Raptors lose 103-87. Trey Lyles with 21. Hamidou Diallo with 18. Raptors shoot 32% from the field as a team. Pure struggle ball. And then March 3rd, 2022. So this is the third straight year the Raptors play the Pistons on March 3rd. They lose 108-106. Raptors trying to make a comeback in the fourth quarter. It doesn't happen. Nick Nurse is ejected. Gary shoots 4-22. Anyway, strange stuff happens when the Raptors play the Pistons, but the end result is the same. The Pistons win, and they win emphatically. Take the Pistons tonight, please.
Okay, so the pick is Pistons plus 4.5.
I understand the Pistons are really bad. Don't worry. Like the Pistons have been really bad every single season.
Yeah. Listen,
it just keeps happening. Plus, the Raptors have nobody who's healthy, right?
It's hard to fault the Raptors if they come up short tonight, but like we talked about, just want to see the effort, man. Let's just see the effort. So that was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. It's a whole new game. I think that does it for us for today, man.
Yeah. Well, I've been your host, Wolu. That's Alex Wong. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Thanks again to producer and co-host Alex Wong. Thanks to Alvin Williams, our board producer Derek Brindale, and Jennifer Rowland for helping us with the YouTube stream. Go get tickets to the live event. Once again, check it out on my social. And, we will talk to you tomorrow, hopefully after a win.